Okay, so let's go ahead and continue with our blockouts. So we got a pretty decent window. You know what? The windows, they can actually be a little bit wider now I look at it. So let's go ahead and just quickly finish off this stuff. Because we took quite a rapid ending in the last part. And that was simply because we were quite a bit over time. Because I try to always keep these pieces below 20 to 30 minutes for you. So that it's a little bit easier to digest all of the information. So we have a store window, and then what I'm also going to do is we have our walkway straight, and I just want to make this one a little bit more interesting. So what I'm going to get started with is, so for our walkway, remember how I said that I was going to make it longer, so that we can basically move it up and down whenever we want. That's what I'm going to do now. So we have this piece. Let's turn on increments, and let's just press E, and let's do that. That should be long enough, something like that, I think. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do something very basic. So this shortcut, it is Ctrl R for me, which basically adds a loop and slide. Oh, I should not do that using snapping. It is very handy to just very quickly add some extra loops like this. And then, for example, here, like doing stuff like that. The only thing is that this is an interesting one. So this one, it is slightly different than your loop cut. But, oh no, wait, it is not. Shift, no, wait, it should be this one, I believe. Ctrl R, so... it's sort of different. The only difference that basically is that if I do Ctrl R... Here, so let me just press it. If I do Ctrl R, I click, and then I can immediately move it around. Or I can right click to leave it in place. However, this one, this loop cut, you need to click and then you need to hold your mouse and then you need to drag to put it into place. And then as soon as you turn off your drag, then it will place. It is a very small difference. I didn't actually realize how small of a difference it really was. However, if you want to use mine, you can find it only in your preferences, in your keep map, and it's called loop, cut and slide. This is the one that you want. This one, there is actually no menu for it, so I cannot actually add it into like my quick favorites or anything like that. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Also, by the way, all of this stuff, it will go a lot faster when we get more into like all of the modeling. In the beginning now, everything will just go a bit slower in terms of me explaining things. In any case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and select all of these pieces and just press delete. And just delete the faces. And then what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and select these two. Q, bridge edge loops. Do the same over here. Q, bridge edge loops, like that. So now it's just to indicate that there's like a different plank over here. To be honest, when I really look at it, it actually can be a lot thinner even. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do a Ctrl R, which will place a loop. Now, cool trick, if you right click, you can actually set a number of loops. So what I can do is I can say like, so I'm just having a look at my reference. Let's do something like this. And then I can just go ahead and I can go in here. I can then Alt-Shift double click or Alt-Shift click on here to like select the loop. Oh, still need to get used to that shortcut. Because in other programs, it's just Control double click. And then you can do like a Ctrl B, which will basically just place like a bevel like this. And if you do like one extra Ctrl R to also place an edge on this side and to also place an edge on this side. Now the nice thing what I can do is this is just basically me indicating, if I also place one over here, that all of this stuff can go backwards. So I don't think that we need these pieces. So if you just click, hold Ctrl and click on like the face down there. Yeah, I know about that one. I often forget about that one, but now I know. And, oh, you know what? Actually, that's double as long. So, yeah, well, it does not matter for blockout. In any case, for blockout, I'm just going to do E. And I'm just going to, like, extrude this in to a point where you cannot really see it anymore. And then I'm just going to also delete these pieces. This is basically the goal. It's just that it kind of like looks like there's something going on there. Of course, it's not evenly spaced, but I could not care less for something like this, because it's a blockout. So this one is going to be walkway straight. And we can now go ahead and go in here. Store window, let's re-import that. Maybe move that back a little bit. to make sure everything fits nicely. And our walkway. See, it's just so that we have an indication that this is going to be our walkway and that it has like these kind of pieces in here. Okay, let's have a look at our asset list. So, dash B, blockout done. Dash B, blockout done. Double-sided window or double-sided wall. Yeah, we can do that one. That is basically like this kind of wall over here. It will just have two sides in case you can ever see the other side. Of course, you could just technically use two planes. But I think for this one, it's just easier if we just do like a double-sided wall. And the way that we are going to do that is we grab our wall short. We duplicate it. Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. Right-click, new collection. Double-sided wall. Throw this in here and now we can turn off our plain wall shot. And then for this one, all that we need to do is if we go ahead and go into tab mode. Let's extend this one backwards. So let's hold E and just extrude this out backwards. And for the thickness, it doesn't need to be too thick for right now because we are going to like improve this later on. So for now, actually, this should already be fine. So yeah, because the thickness does not really say anything because we will have like these beams sitting next to it. So we can go in, export this. So this will be double-sided wall. And I know that I made a small mistake where I accidentally did it on my wall short instead of the other one. Does not matter. I can just swap these two around. There we go. And then turn off my wall short. Okay, double-sided wall, check. Shift A, mesh, and create a cube. And this one is going to be like our, if we set the increment, this one is going to be our pillar. So we want to go ahead for a dimension of, sorry, on the z-axis, a dimension of 8. Huh? Oh, wait, sorry, this one needs to be 8. Dimension of 8. No, not that one. Z-axis 8. There we go. And here, let's just boost up the increments. And then I'm gonna go for like 0.5, probably, by 0.5. You know what, that might actually still be too much. 0.4. Or you can just do 0.4, that also works. 0.4, yeah, that seems a bit easier. So right click, new collection, add this to here, and just call this generic beam, file, export, FBX, generic beam. And let's just go ahead and also set these ones up. And you might have guessed what we're going to do. We are just slowly going to build up a few houses so that we know everything works. And once we've built up every individual house, we can then go ahead and just nicely organize it into folders, place it together. These pieces over here, we probably need to do like a bit more work on, but that will come a little bit later. So, generic beam and our double-sided wall. Let's import those. Here, see, so now that the metrics are done, it's a lot easier to work with. So what I can do is I have over here my wall. I can turn on grid snapping up here. And I can snap this to my grid. And this is going to be double-sided wall. There we go. It looks like that the wall is inverted. For this, the way that you can fix this sometimes happens when we extrude this because we extrude it probably the wrong way around. You can also see this if you go down here and turn on face orientation, you can see that it is inverted. So if you just go ahead and you basically want to go in edit mode, just press A to select everything and press Shift N. And Shift N will basically recalculate your normals, which will often invert it into the right location. If something is still red, you just select that one face, you press Shift N and then you just press the inside button. And that's when can flip it around. And now we can just turn this off. And we can go ahead and we can export this to be double-sided wall. Ta-da! That fixed it. And the only thing that I need to make sure of that this one is flat. So that it always goes backwards. Because else, yeah, it just might cause some problems. So, okay. So what do we now have here? So we need like a rooftop. We do need some... So here we have our generic beam. Cool trick. If you select your wall, right click on your location and press copy, you can grab your beam, right click and press paste, and that will just instantly paste it nicely together. Like that, see? And that often already does the trick. And then you can just go ahead and you can duplicate this. And because we are using even numbers, everything is just nicely duplicated exactly to the centimeter correctly. And do the same over here. Ta-da! So that also looks nice. Now over here we have this wall. For this one we can just go ahead and we can rotate it 180. Move it over here and then rotate it and then move it like back. There you go. So now we have two of those walls sitting over there. So that's also working. And now what we can do is let's get started with like our generic roof, shall we? So for our generic roof, if we, by the way, save your Blender scene. It's been a while since I've done that. Now for our roof, we can pretty much state that it almost always will be based upon like the short length, as you can see over here. And even if that is not the case, we can literally just scale up the roof. So that should not really be a problem. So if we go ahead and let's turn on over here our wall short. Now this is a tricky thing that does sometimes happen. So we have our wall short and then we also have these pillars on top. But it's very hard to keep in mind where like the actual metrics of our pillars on top of the rest. And the reason why this is difficult is because we never know where exactly we are going to use our pillars or our beams and where not. So it's kind of like guesswork. I'm gonna go ahead and create a, didn't mean to do that, Shift A, create a cube. Metrics is turned on, which is fine. So I can go in and what I'm going to do is I'm gonna, let's see, what metrics shall we use for this? So you are 12 meters long. Well, okay, so that one is easy. So this one actually 12.5. So as I said before, we are going to just like push it out a little bit more. For the back side, shall we go for 8? I feel like 8 would be logical. Yeah, because then we can just duplicate it over and over again whenever we want. So let's go for 8. And then if we go for, so this is 8, so this is pretty much like 4. So let's go for like 4 to get started with. And once you've done that, let's go into edit mode, face select, and just scale this flat. There we go. It's very basic, but for now it hopefully does the trick. So now what we can do is we can just go ahead and right click, new collection, generic, roof, A, just in case we ever want to make new ones. And then what we can do with this one is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to Maxivis, edit pivot, set my snapping to vertex and just snap it to like the side. And I'm going to just set this back to 0, 0, 0, like that. There we go. File, export, FPS, FBX, generic, roof A. Let's do that one. And if we go ahead and then also go in here and import it. Cool. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. And then for this one, as I said before, it's a bit tricky to get this like exact line up. I think something like that. Here, see? 0.5. Wow, that's pretty spot on, actually. Oh, no, wait. It's not spot on. But that's no problem. That's what I was intending to have, that it does not really need to fit perfectly. So now that we have this one, it will fit perfectly on this side. So we can go ahead and we can just like duplicate this 3 times and it should give us like a nice effect over here. And then if we grab these pillars, that's the only thing that I'm a bit worried about. I wonder if they stick out or not, and else we can just... Nah, I see here, that's pretty perfect. Kind of like, I almost feel like that I want to make this stick out, so you can, if you want, turn off your snapping in the scaling. And you can like scale this like a tiny bit sometimes, just to give it like that little stick out effect. Now at this point, you basically can go ahead and rotate this. set this to be a plain wall short. And now we have a closed off roof. See? There we go. Of course, later on we can have like some small windows in here. And we can make it all look like really nice and cool. But it is already like starting to look a little bit more like what we have over here. So for our plain wall short, I feel like my roof needs to be a bit higher. So let's make the generic roof. Let's just snap this with like increments just to keep it fairly even. There we go. And just snap it one higher. So one grid point higher. And let's try that again. Yeah, see here that feels a bit better. Okay. So we've done that one. We can go ahead and go into our list. Generic beam B. Wall short B. Generic angled roof B. So now we are going to start working on our shop trims. And our shop trims are just going to be like these two versions that we have over here. Which should be quite basic. Now, what I'm thinking is, so this version over here, I don't really like it. But we also have this piece down here. So I think I'm going to turn this into a version. And I'm going to turn this one into a version. The first version is going to be very easy. All we really need to do is we need to open up our, let's say, our double-sided wall over here. Create a new cube. So Shift A, create a cube. There we go. Move those down here. Sorry, no, not X. On the, I always forget which one it is. On the Y-axis, 8. Not 8, 12, sorry. So 12 on the Y-axis. Now this one also once again needs to be often a little bit bigger. And also it has an ending. So because it has an ending, it might be easier if we go instead of 12, if we go for 6.5. That extra 0.5 is so that it sticks out over here because we have of course our beams. And then if we do 6.5, as you can see over here, it sticks out a tiny bit. My thought is that we have like an end and then in Unreal, we simply rotate this end around to basically close it off. So that will still mean that we only need to make one piece. Now, if we go in here and let's set this to 0.5. I feel like 0.5 might be like a pretty decent metric. I don't worry too much that it is not offset correctly. I'm just having a think about like how thick this needs to be. So we are basically going to judge. No, wait, we need to have it based upon the thickness of our beam. That's it. So our generic beam over here. Let's go ahead and turn off our double-sided wall. It needs to be based. Perfect. Oh yeah, so that's already good. Okay, great. Okay, so we got this piece over here. Now, in terms of like our height, what we're going to do. So I'm basically going to like draw out this profile. And for that, if we go ahead and let's right click, create a new collection, throw this in here and just call this shop top trim A. Okay, so we have our, I don't know why my way is turned on. So we have our straight. I'm just having a guess about how high this needs to be. It needs to be quite high. Let's turn off increment scaling. Let's start with something like this. We can always change later on. And I'm just going to have like a very basic profile here just for now. And this profile is going to be like a Ctrl R. And it looks like it has like around here, where it basically just sticks in. Ctrl R. Over here. And then it pushes out. And then for the ending, so for the ending, let's see, what kind of ending would be interesting for us? Can we just like push this out like this? That might just be enough already to keep it quite basic. So we now got something like this. And now what I want to do is I just want to have it on both sides. For this, what I like to do is, my pivot point is still at the center, which is pretty good. I like to go down here into my modifier properties. Add a modifier, and I always add just like a simple mirror. And the mirror, it will basically flip it around. And because our pivot point is still in the center, it will just do like a good flip. Now also go ahead and turn on bisect and set your merge threshold maybe like a little bit higher. Turning on bisect basically means that it will not just keep it as two models, but it will actually merge these models together. You can see that it works when it has like a perfect center line. If your pivot point is not exactly in center, you can use the edit pivot, as you can see over here. See? To basically move it around. There we go, but I'm going to just leave that like this. Once that is done, you can click on your modifier, press Ctrl A, and that will basically apply the modifier, which means that you no longer need to worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and just select this line, and I'm going to press delete. And this time I want to delete my edge loops, which will basically just delete this one edge loop along with the vertices with it. Just to keep things nice and clean. And that should already be it. So at this point we can turn off our generic beam. I'm gonna go ahead and edit my pivot and snap it to this little corner over here. And set all of this to 0. And there we go, that should do the trick. So we have file, export, FBX, shop, top, trim, _A. Let's export that, and that's the final one that we will do this chapter. So shop, top, trim, A. Let's go ahead and import it in here. And we can start by just moving it in here to make sure that it works. Seems to work. We're not going to use snapping this time, we're just going to have it over here. And with this one, as I said before, what we're going to do is we're basically going to kind of like move it out like that. And then if we go in and we can just Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, rotate it 180. And now what you can do is if you go ahead and you hold V, you can actually snap your piece to vertices. So we can actually snap this exactly to this vertice, and that will just make sure that they are perfectly aligned and they are perfectly flowing over. At which point we can just go ahead and make this more nicely in the center like this. And there we go. So now we have this shop trim. And what I was going to try is to then duplicate this and hopefully also have this like over here. Or we might want to like do like a, yeah, here. So we might need to do like a little cut or something like that in order to make this work, or at the very least like do like a scaling. But that's something that we can do at the very end. So when we have like a final mesh, we can simply cut off after we've done all the texturing. We can just cut it off, and that will kind of like make it fit over there. And there we go. So that is going to be our first little window over here. Just want to make sure. So yeah, as you can see over here, the roofs, they are a little bit closer. And I actually quite like that because it feels a little bit unlogical to me that you have such a big slab of... Yeah, you see, it just feels unlogical to me that you have a big slab of wood with all of the weathering effects and everything like that, and that would work. So I'm not sure if we can maybe like make this one a bit higher, and because we need to make a wall version anyway, and this wall version is going to be like cut in half basically. So I wonder if I feel like it would make more sense if I do something like this. Now for this wall version, as I said before, we can cut it in half, or what we can try to do is we can try to basically do this, where we move this one up by default until it like nicely fits. Then we turn on like grid snapping, and then we basically move it down. Doing this technique might sometimes also be handy for when we want to move our walls up and down, but it kind of depends. So I will make like a shortcut, like a half cut anyway, but I will do that in my next chapter. Save our scene and let's continue to the next chapter.